Standardization is an important aspect of the process of education. Like other educational constructs or concepts, standardization has its pros and cons. So, in this presentation, we will discuss standardization and its pros and cons. Generally, standardization actually means the development of uniform policies, procedures, content, and assessments or assessment processes across schools and across educational systems, nationally or internationally. The process of standardization actually involves the provision of uniform curricula, teaching methods, exams, teacher training, and infrastructured standards. The aim of standardization basically is to ensure consistency, uniformity, comparability, and equity in the process and product of education. Now, what are its pros? What are the pros of what are the advantages of the process of standardization in education? So, first of all, standardization is important because it helps us in ensuring equal learning opportunities for all learners across the society. So, what happens is that standardization basically helps in ensuring that all students, regardless of their backgrounds, their socioeconomic backgrounds, their locations, they have access to the same quality of education. For example, in the Pakistani context, we can say that the idea of the single national curriculum was based on the concept that there should be unification of the learning content or uniformity of the learning content across the public and private schools or across the various types of schools in the society. And the aim was that every child should study the same subjects and topics at the same grade level. So whatever is the background of the child, that should not impact what they are actually learning or what is important for them to learn. Secondly, standardization helps in measuring academic performance objectively. Again, standardization is not just about the provision of the educational content, but also the evaluation of it, and on the basis of that, the evaluation of the students' learning. So, standardized testing, for example, which is like one of the elements of standardization, helps in the testing of education system, and this helps to evaluate students' achievement across regions fairly, and it also helps in tracking the national progress on a national level. So again, examples of the standardization of evaluation of the evaluation system is, for example, board exams in Pakistan, where there is a standardized format for assessment for example, at the secondary school level and at the higher secondary school level as well. Next, standardization also helps in facilitating mobility because the curriculum is uniform, the delivery is uniform, then the assessment systems are uniform. So what happens is that students can move from one region or country on an international level to another region or to another place, and so there is this integration. It becomes easier where you can say students can integrate into the education system in other areas because of the standardization of the curricula and the assessment systems, the curriculum delivery systems. Again, examples on international level, we can say the IB or the Cambridge curricula are standardized globally, and as a result, it makes it easier for people who are like going from one place to another, migrating, and transitioning from one place to another place, such as expats and migrant students, it becomes easier for them to get out of one place or one education system and get into another one based on their qualification in a standardized format of education. Then standardization also helps improve the process of accountability in education. So as we know that accountability both for teachers and students and educational stakeholders is an important aspect of the process of education. So standardization actually helps in developing benchmarks and that make it easier to hold schools, teachers, and educational authorities accountable for student outcomes across a spectrum. So again, example, performance-based funding models in many countries where schools or educational institutions are their performance is actually measured because of the standardization of the education, and they can be rewarded, those schools, those educational institutions can be rewarded and based on the standardized results in terms of the funding that is provided to them. The other important thing is that standardization helps in guiding teacher training and curricula design as well. So because there is a standardized framework that helps the teacher education programs to develop focused teacher training and curriculum, that is where the teachers are prepared to deliver the standardized format of the of education or curricula. So again, in many countries, national teacher education aligns with the curricula or the standardized curricula at the school and college level, and so they are able to produce teachers who can effectively deliver curricula. Now, the next thing is standardization also comes up with certain, you can say, disadvantages or cons. So the first one is that often standardization ignores local context and cultural diversity. Generally, standardization comes at the cost of the flexibility in the education system that is required to look at local context and cultural diversity. But in a uniform curriculum, this is generally not possible. And generally, this type of education does not reflect regional languages, cultures, histories, or students' needs. Again, example, standardized curricula may undermine regional languages, for example, and cultures or local contexts. The other cons is that in many cases, standardization of the educational process leads to promote rote learning and exam-oriented education, because the exams are based on standards or set patterns, and so the educational institutions prepare students according to those set patterns. So standardized testing often emphasizes then rote memorization in order for students to be successful, to have good grades in the exams, instead of developing their unique abilities and critical thinking. The next thing is that it often suppresses teacher autonomy and innovation. Again, teachers have to prepare students according to standardized curricula and standardized assessment systems, and as a result, the teacher's ability to adapt the content to local cultural context, to the unique needs of the students and the society, this becomes very limited. Then standardized tests also, standardization in education also create pressure and anxiety among students, mainly because there are high stakes involved in the standardized examination, especially the examination that happens towards the end of an educational program. And so this can actually increase the value of those exams, and as a result there is a generally increase in the stress level for students that struggle in the traditional academic setting. So again, what we can say here is an example where there is intense pressure of, for example, board exams or high stakes exams and entrance tests, and this is something that comes as a cons of the standardization of education. The next thing is, in many cases the curricula are standardized, maybe the teaching methods and the assessment systems are standardized, but there are infrastructural gaps where the schools or education institutions that are located in lower socioeconomic background areas, those do not have the sufficient infrastructure or the requisite infrastructure. And as a result, what happens is that the same curriculum might be taught in an urban school with smart boards and trained teachers, and rural school with no electricity or often untrained staff. So although the curricula are standardized, the assessment systems might be standardized, but the infrastructure that is needed to implement that standardization is actually not there. So to summarize, we can say that standardization is good in terms of promoting equity and uniformity, but at the same time, the success of standardization actually is dependent on context, the infrastructure, especially in diverse or resource scarce settings. It is difficult to implement standardization in the true spirit. As a result, the way out could be a hybrid approach where there is inclusion of some national core national standards, but at the same time there should be some space for local adaptation, and this is something that can lead to more flexibility in the education system, more creativity on the part of the of students, more independence on the part of teachers and the educational institutions, and this is something that could be more useful.